Welcome to So That Reminds Me, Reminder Publishing's bi-weekly podcast discussing Western Mass news. My name is Dennis Hackett.
And I'm Lauren LaBelle.
And we'll be your host for today's episode. On this week's episode, we are sitting down with Forest Park Zoo Executive Director Sarah Tsitso to talk about the zoo and everything new for 2025. But before we get into that, Lauren, how are things with you? What's new?
Things are good. The weather is finally getting nice, which is great. I went golfing last weekend for the first time this season.
Nice.
It was much better than I thought it would be. Only 9 holes. My goal this year, as I wrote in my recent Go Local column, is to do 18 holes, but we're starting with 9 to get back into it. I'm supposed to be going this weekend if it doesn't rain, so
nice.
We'll see. But yeah, just enjoying the nice weather. Looking forward to summer. Have a lot of fun things coming up, so looking forward to that. How about you?
Yeah, I don't golf. I've explained this to everybody at this office probably multiple times that the last time I went to drive buckets was this was probably 6 or 7 years ago. I broke my dad's driver's head. So after that, I was like, this isn't for me. I can't really get the hang of this. But my golf is disc golf now, which is what I do pretty much every weekend. So, which is basically just Frisbee and golf and.
That seems to be very popular now. A lot of people seem to be getting into that more. I've been hearing a lot about it. Well,
and then, so this is kind of a little bit of a segue, but one of the stories Debbie Gardner wrote for the upcoming East Longmeadow Reminder at the Scannick Valley YMCA in Wilbraham, they're going to be doing like a little clinic on senior sports, and disc golf was one of them. So
cool.
If anybody's interested in learning about that, you can check that out. Yeah. But yeah, it's a good time. I mean, it turns into a hike. Usually we go up to Flint Park in Munson, which is basically just a mountain. You're just walking up it, and then you walk down it, and it's a good time. But
it sounds fun.
Yeah, it is a good time. But yeah, and then so looking forward to this episode. I mean, Forest Park Zoo, somewhere I used to go to all the time when I was a little kid, and it was really interesting to hear the way it's kind of changed. For our listeners' context, we already conducted the interview, but you guys are about to hear it now. But it was interesting to hear the way that they've changed how it's like focused on a lot of animal rehabilitation and stuff like that. So it was very interesting for me to hear, who went to the zoo, early 2000s with my grandma, like a lot, to go see the lemurs. Those were my favorite animals. But yeah, it was an enlightening conversation for me to kind of see where it's come. Lauren, you said you haven't been to the zoo before.
I've never been. I think I'd like to go this year. She was talking about some upcoming events that seem super fun and interesting, so hopefully I'll get to
the wine safari and the brew at the zoo really seem like they could be fun events,
yes,
on top of all their educational programming they have too. But.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, well, before we jump into this interview, I think we're going to take a quick break.
We get it. You're busy, but you want to be connected to your local community. If you're not reading The Reminder, Western Mass's free weekly newspaper, you're missing out on the heartbeat of your town. Stay in the loop with all the latest buzz, from local stories to community updates and exciting events. It's all in The Reminder. Just log on to thereminder.com and dive into the hometown news you love. To subscribe to receive The Reminder at your home, call 413-788-1316. Don't miss a beat. Your town, your stories, your community for over 60 years. The Reminder. We are hometown news. Are you hearing wedding bells? Take a deep breath. Go Local Magazine has your back. Our wedding special section is your one-stop resource to the best in local photographers, caterers, florists, venues, and so much more. Get inspired by the couples who share their special day with us. Then check out the experts who created their perfect event. It's all here and all at your fingertips in Go Local.
So we are here with Sarah Tsitso, Forest Park Zoo's Executive Director. So to kind of get started, do you mind telling us about the animal you brought in to show us today?
I brought Natasha with me today. Natasha is a Russian tortoise. These guys live to be between 40 and 50 years old. So a lot of times when folks buy them as pets, they don't really understand what goes into that lifelong commitment. So Natasha here is one of many surrendered pets we have at the zoo that now call our zoo their home.
Okay.
So to start, can you talk a little bit about the history of the Forest Park Zoo? How and when did it open, and how has it evolved since then?
It's evolved about 10 times over since it started. We actually began about 131 years ago, and for most of that time, we were city-run and operated. As a matter of fact, Theodore Geisel, who many of you know as Dr. Seuss, his father was the third superintendent of the Forest Park Zoo way back in the day. So Ted Geisel grew up in the zoo, and many of the fanciful creatures that he created have been attributed to the time he spent with his dad in the zoo. So we have a long and storied history in the city of Springfield. We actually became a private nonprofit organization in the late 60s. So we are now run by a board of directors. So while we're still located inside of Forest Park, we actually are not affiliated with the city. We lease that space. It's about 4.5 acres. And we work with the city whenever possible, but we are an independent nonprofit that is not funded by the city. So that's what's one of the big changes over the years. Another big change is about 8 years ago, the board of directors and I sat down and thought about our future, and we moved away from that traditional zoo model. Many people who remember the Forest Park Zoo from back in the day remember the monkey house, and they remember the polar bear, and they remember the elephant. And while for many those are wonderful memories, for us it's just not who we are anymore. We're a small zoo, and we opted to, instead of focusing on those exotic animals, we are now completely focused on bringing in only animals that require a home because they have something going on that prevents them from surviving on their own in the wild. So whether they're a surrendered pet who's never lived in the wild, whether they are orphaned and can't survive, if they have some sort of disability that's permanent. We have a lot of three-legged animals and one-eyed animals and animals that have been injured in some way that prevents them from being able to hunt or even just survive the weather in the wild. So if you come to the zoo today, it's a very different place with lots of native animals that are fine with our temperature. They don't mind the New England seasons, as we all know. Look outside. You never know what's happening out there. And so we really are focused on more native wildlife that you might see in your backyard, but they're all with us for a very special reason.
Okay. And then how long have you been with the zoo, and how long have you been the executive director?
8 years.
Oh, okay.
Time has flown. This is my 9th season, and I'm always so excited when spring comes and we're able to open our gates again to the public. So this is my 9th season in 8 years.
Okay. And then what kind of got you into wanting to work in a zoo, or kind of get you to where you are now?
I had zero animal experience before I came to the zoo.
Okay.
None. My focus was nonprofit management. So I was really in depth in figuring out things that were maybe issues within nonprofits and how to fix them. And so the board of directors actually approached me back in 2016 asking if I might be interested. They were really at a crossroads. The board was trying to figure out what the next steps were for the zoo. They were in a lot of financial trouble. They weren't sure how to fix it. And so by 2017, I had agreed to come on. And in the middle of the summer, end of summer that year, I did come in just to see if I could save it. I not grew up in that neighborhood, but my daughter grew up in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And we lived in that neighborhood for a very long time and had birthday parties at the zoo and spent Saturday afternoons there. And so to me, it was personal. We really needed to figure out a way to keep this 130-year-old community resource functioning and sustainable for generations to come. So I was really thrilled and feel very privileged that I've been able to do this work. And actually, we have done just what we set out to do, which is turn it around. We are now financially stable. We have a new mission statement. We're out in the community doing all kinds of educational programming, and we're just growing every year by leaps and bounds.
How much of a challenge was that to really kind of right the ship like that? It seems like a lot of work.
I'll be honest, I wasn't sure we could do it, but we did. And it wasn't just me. It was a concerted effort between a very dedicated board of directors. There are 13 board members who are my bosses, and I couldn't ask for better bosses. They're just so committed to the mission and the organization. And then I built a team, many of whom were already there, but maybe not in the right positions, and moved up some folks who'd been there for a long time and really loved that place. And their ideas and their commitment helped us bring it to where it is today, which is, a viable nonprofit organization smack in the middle of the city of Springfield.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how many animals do you have at the zoo, and what are some of those different kinds of animals?
We have about 225 animals right now, which is usually more than people think we have. And we have a wide cross-section. As I mentioned, we have a lot of native species. So we have beavers, we have porcupines, we have skunks, we have groundhogs, we have a lot of birds. So we have screech owl, and we have hawks, and we have 2 bald eagles. We have a lot of parrots and macaws. Again, those are pets that live a very long time, and people don't realize that, and they're multi-generational pets in many cases, so a lot of them get surrendered. We have coyotes, 2 disabled coyotes. We have wolves. We have bobcats. We have lemurs. We have black-handed spider monkeys. We have servals, which are a small African cat. And then last year, we actually brought in 2 bison from another facility down south. And the purpose for bringing in those bison was educational for our guests, so that we could talk about overhunting and how many of these species were brought to the brink of extinction for various reasons, including bison, and are now thriving once again. Not in this part of the U.S., but in other parts of the U.S. So everything we do is really focused on one of those 3 stools of education, conservation, and rehabilitation.
What would you say is the most exotic animal that you have?
Well, our birds are all very exotic and very loud. The servals being African cats, they're certainly on the list of things that are not from here. But as I said, we used to have a leopard. Most people would remember him. He lived to be about 21 and then passed. That's a very old age for a cat. We lost him a couple years ago. But we also have a Bactrian camel, which is a huge hit. Her name is Farah. She's a huge diva. She runs the roost, and Bactrian camels are the 2-hump camels. And those come from parts of like Asia, where you think of Nepal and some of those colder climates. So she's probably our furthest afield animal.
And what would you say is the most visited or popular animal at the zoo?
Oh, our beavers are pretty popular. They're so cool. There's something, native to our region. You could probably go down on the Connecticut River and see some. But to see them up close and know they're actually really friendly, our 2 especially love to swim around their pond and engage with our guests. And so they're popular. The monkeys are always popular. Everyone loves to see the black-handed spider monkeys and the lemurs. But what's interesting about when you ask about favorites, all of our animals have their stories, not just their where they came from and what they eat, but their actual stories of who they are and why they're there are at their exhibits. So our guests get very close to specific animals just because they love that particular animal's story. So it really does run the gamut of what our guests come to see.
And then you kind of talked about how a lot of the animals are kind of surrenders or things like that. What are some of the other ways that animals find their way at the zoo?
We work with a network of rehabilitators and other facilities like ours across the country. So, for example, our 2 bald eagles, Jack and Eva, they came to us from the Alaska Raptor Center. So they came to us all the way from Alaska. And the Alaska Raptor Center works with facilities to place eagles that are not releasable. Our 2, for example, Jack and Eva, one was shot in the wing and was unable to then sustain flight, and the other one was hit by a car and had permanent wing damage as well. So as you know, if you see them around, bald eagles, they got to soar and they got to dive, and these 2 were not able to do that. So we work with those kinds of rehab facilities all over to bring in animals that make sense for our collection.
Obviously, a lot of these animals, you've kind of explained that they have some kind of disability or something. How difficult is it kind of to take care of them and make sure that they're in tip-top shape for everybody to see and be healthy?
That's something people don't really think a lot about, that it's expensive to, care for these animals. They have lifelong medication needs, lifelong veterinary needs that go beyond just a regular checkup. We have animals that we're getting in their older years a lot of the time. And so, we have a lot of issues that are unique to elderly animals. So it's tough to stay on top of it, but we have an amazing zoo veterinarian that we work with, and she is so good about understanding all of our animals' unique needs. Our staff keeps an eye every single day, every animal's name, every animal's diet, every animal's medication. You could ask and stop any of my animal care staff, and they could recite that for you. They're very close to these animals, and but it's a process to take care of animals that are coming in with these kinds of challenges.
Absolutely. And then kind of going off of that, what are some of the, what does it kind of take to keep the zoo running? Like when people were like in the off season and stuff, how are the animals taken care of? Do they stay, or do they go anywhere, or is it all in-house there?
That is probably our number one asked question. Where do the animals go in the winter? And the answer is they don't go. They
Yeah.
stay with us. Not one animal leaves our facility. The animals that require special levels of heat and other conditions that are not, native New England conditions, everyone has indoor housing. Even the ones who are native and are more capable of sustaining themselves during our winter months, they all have special areas they can go for warmth. We're very, very cautious when it comes to weather because, yes, it's difficult in the winter, but for a lot of our animals, the summer is equally difficult with the heat and the humidity. So we really pay very close attention to weather conditions, body conditions of our animals, how their coats are they coming in, are they going out, and what their needs are. And if you come in the summer, you will see, especially our porcupines, we freeze blocks of ice, and our porcupines just splay all the way out on it, lay right on their bellies, all four limbs out, splayed. So you'll see lots of the techniques we use to keep our animals cool in the summer and warm in the winter.
Okay.
So what does the selection process of selecting these animals that go into the zoo look like?
It's a little more chaotic than you think because, again, we're not going out buying animals. So a lot of it comes down to calls we're getting from rehabilitators. Hey, I have this particular animal. Can you take it? So we don't always know when those calls are coming, what that animal might be, what that animal's needs are long term. So when we get those calls, we have an internal discussion, myself and the head of my animal care team and a couple of other zookeepers to see, do we think this animal would be a good fit for our collection? The issue we have now is we're full. We don't really have any space for any additional animals. So that's a tough thing too, is to say no, but sometimes we have to say no.
And then I guess how many people does it take to keep the zoo up and running?
Well, we have 5 full-time zookeepers plus our head of animal care. We have a facilities person who's full-time. We have guest relations folks. So I would say on average our staff in the summer and our busiest time is about 20. We're probably down to 12 to 15 in the winter.
Okay.
But it's never animal care that's less. It's usually just guest relations and those kinds of positions. Our animal care team is static throughout the year because the animals are all there throughout the year.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we start talking about what's happening at the zoo this year, we're going to take a quick ad break.
Prime, your guide to your best life after age 50, is changing for 2025. All the news and information you've come to rely on and more will now be coming to you in a bigger, better edition of Prime every quarter. And if the Prime audience is the target market for your goods and services, reach out to Sales Manager Scott Green at 525-6695 to grow with us.
Since the founding of Reminder Publishing over 60 years ago, the Reminder has brought local businesses together with their customers, your neighbors and friends, through our advertising and coverage. Over the past 4 years, the Reminder has been adding to its reporting capabilities and expanding our readership while other newspapers in the region, state, and country have scaled back or closed. We want local journalism to thrive and grow and are asking readers and listeners to support and participate. The Reminder Press Club's mission is to ensure that local journalism is sustainable and leading healthy community discussions. The Reminder Press Club is a way for you to support the crucial work of professional reporters covering the vital stories in our community. Learn more about the Reminder Press Club or join at reminderpressclub.com.
What's on the slate for the zoo this year? Anything new, exciting people should know about?
We just opened for the 2025 season at the end of March. We had our very first big event of the year on April 19th, which is Extravaganza. We had over 1,000 people come for this event. It's usually our most well-attended, probably because it's at a time of the year where everyone wants to get outside. And we had a beautiful day. It was 80-something degrees on the 19th, and so we welcomed a really nice crowd. We also have coming up our annual wine safari. That's a really cool event. That's May 31st this year. And what that is we have wine tastings from all over the world, and we pair them at an exhibit with an animal that's also from that part of the world. And then zookeepers are there to talk about that animal, and then we have someone there to talk about the wine. And so that's always a really fun event where we're able to get people knowledgeable about our animals while drinking some wine in the process. And then for the beer drinkers of the world, we kind of flip the script a little. And the first Saturday in August, we hold our Brew at the Zoo. So it's similar format where we have brewers from local breweries who come in, donate their beer, donate their time. And then we have a homebrew competition as well where homebrewers from all over the region come in and are able to share all of the wonderful creative work they are doing. Homebrewers really do come with the most interesting products every year. We have a band, we have all kinds of activities, and that is a fabulous event that sells out every year. So we've got a lot going on this summer. We have our annual summer camp coming up. That always sells out as well. Zoo camp is a really fun way for the kids to have some true animal interactions as part of their summer vacation. And so we're just ready for it. We're ready for the new season. Our animals are happy and healthy and loving the sunshine finally. It was a slow start to the spring, but they're all there. And, the funny thing I just want to remind people, too, when they come visit, is that if you don't see an animal in an exhibit, it doesn't mean it's not there. All of our exhibits are full, but just like people, sometimes animals just don't want to be bothered. There's lots of times we don't want to be bothered too. So if you don't see an animal, it doesn't mean it's not there. It just means it's hiding from you for that particular moment.
So for someone who's never been to the zoo or someone who hasn't been in a while, what are some things that they can look forward to?
We're doing a lot now with keeper talks. So you are going to have access to zookeepers who are going to tell you some stories, who are going to give you more information about the animals. We're doing things like story times. And one of the big new additions we have is the education center. We opened last year, but it was only open for part of the year. This year it's fully open. And that's where we're keeping our a lot of our reptiles and amphibians. So it's an actual center where you can go in and there will be a staff person in there where you can touch some things and you can learn some new information on these types of animals. And frankly, snakes are something that a lot of people might have a fear. And we're trying to get them over that fear. Touch a snake, learn a little bit about it. It's not going to hurt you. And people really do respond well to that. So the Ed Center is a cool new feature this year that guests can look forward to.
Yeah, snakes are something that are definitely a bit of
You're not alone.
Bit of a fear of mine.
You're not alone.
So then I guess what kind of makes Forest Park Zoo stand out from other zoos in the area? I know obviously a lot of the rehabilitation stuff seems very unique. So just curious what you think makes you stand out.
Well, for sure, the rehabilitation and the conservation work that we do. But we're an urban zoo, at our heart. We've been in that spot within the park for 131 years. So we really take pride in the fact that we are part of the fabric of Springfield and that we're really just stewards of this organization that has been there for generations of families. And it's my job to just make sure that other people have access to it and continue to have access to it. But the fact that we're kind of this little oasis of wildlife in the middle of the city, plus all of our rehabilitation efforts, I think that's really does make us unique.
So now that you're open for the 2025 season, what are the hours and rates for the zoo?
So the hours are changing a little bit as of Mother's Day. So we only do weekends up until Mother's Day. But as of Mother's Day weekend, we're open 7 days a week. And we will be open 7 days a week until the middle of September, when we'll go back to a weekends-only schedule once the kids go back to school. We are open 10 to 4. Last entry is at 3:30. Our prices are $13 for adults, $7 for kids, and then we do have some discounts for seniors and military. And our memberships are the cheapest thing going. You can get a membership for just over $100, and that's for 5 people for the whole season. So if you're going to come more than once or twice, that's the way to go. We want to make it affordable. Again, we are in the city. We want to be accessible. We don't want to price anybody out. Our local libraries, I think we have 52 of them at this point in Massachusetts and Connecticut that have library passes. So that's another option for folks who maybe don't want to spend the money. They can go to their local library and check out the day passes. So we're trying to really get out there in a way that people can come see our animals.
And then one of the programs we kind of saw researching the zoo was the Symbolically Adopt an Animal program. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
That's always so much fun. So you get, a little welcome from your animal, and we give you a couple updates throughout the year. We tell you lots of fun facts about your animal, and then it just gives you, again, that personal connection. So when you come to the zoo, you can go see that animal in their exhibit. Many of them you can't actually touch, but being able to actually go and lay eyes on this animal that you have symbolically immediately adopted is really lots of fun. And that program has grown exponentially. We only started that a couple of years ago, and it's just blown up. People love that connection to the animal.
I think that pretty much covers all the questions we have. Anything else you want to add about the zoo?
The one thing I will add, I think it's important for people to understand that the team that works at the zoo, they do it because they love it. There is not a lot of money in this work. Not only is it a nonprofit, it's also animal care. So when you put those two things together, these people are not raking it in. And the reason they do it is passion and love and commitment to these animals. And I know not everybody understands the role of zoos. And I think that's why it's important for us to talk so much about the fact that without our zoo, the animals that live there would not survive. These are not animals that we're breeding and selling or buying. These are animals that are coming to us from a situation where someone has determined they would not survive. And our goal then, and our job, is to give them the best, healthiest, happiest home for the rest of their lives. And we take that very seriously.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you. I would love it. Thanks for having me.
That wraps another episode of So That Reminds Me. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with another episode in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for listening to So That Reminds Me, produced by Western Massachusetts news source Reminder Publishing. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, find the latest news at thereminder.com, and follow Reminder Publishing on Instagram at Reminder Publishing, on X at The Reminder MA, and on Facebook. Reminder Publishing, we are hometown news.